In November 2000, a strange message appeared on a time travel discussion forum. "Greetings," it began. "I am a time traveler from the year 2036. The poster called himself John Titor and claimed to be a soldier sent back in time on a military mission. Over the next few months, he would share detailed descriptions of his time machine, predictions about our future, and photographs of technology that supposedly didn't yet exist. Then, in March 2001, he vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared, leaving behind a captivating internet mystery. Was John Titor really a visitor from our future, a sophisticated hoax, or something else entirely? The digital breadcrumbs he left behind have been analyzed and debated for over 2 decades, and still, no definitive answer has emerged. Welcome to Vanishing Threads. Today we're exploring the mysterious case of John Titor, the self-proclaimed time traveler whose online presence captivated the early internet and created a legend that persists to this day. The story begins in the summer of 2000 on the Art Bell radio show's online forum. A user calling themselves timetravel_0 began posting, claiming to be a time traveler. These posts were brief and didn't attract much attention. But a few months later, on November 2nd, 2000, the same entity resurfaced on the Time Travel Institute forums, now using the name John Titor. Titor's initial posts were relatively straightforward. He claimed to be a soldier from 2036, sent back in time on a government mission to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer. According to Titor, this obsolete machine contained hidden capabilities that would be needed to debug legacy computer systems in his time. His mission included a stopover in 2000 for personal reasons, supposedly to warn us about the future and reconnect with his family. What made Titor's claims stand out wasn't just their boldness, but their specificity. Most self-proclaimed time travelers are vague. Titor was anything but. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Titor's story was his detailed description of his time machine. He didn't just say, "I have a time machine." He provided specifications, diagrams, and even photographs. According to Titor, his device was installed in a 1967 Chevrolet Corvette convertible and was based on technology developed at CERN. He described a system involving dual microsingularities, essentially 2 miniature rotating black holes generating a Tipler sinusoid that allowed for movement through time. The physics Titor described was not complete nonsense. It referenced real theoretical concepts like closed time-like curves and the work of physicist Frank Tipler, who had published papers on theoretical time travel. Titor's descriptions were technical enough to sound plausible to laypeople, while remaining just vague enough to avoid being definitively disproven by experts. Most impressively, Titor posted photos of his supposed time machine components, images showing strange mechanical devices with dials and gauges. These appeared to be installed in the rear of a car, just as he described. The images were grainy and unclear, convenient for a hoax, but also consistent with the limited digital photography technology of 2000. While Titor's time machine was fascinating, it was his predictions about our future that truly captured the public's imagination. He painted a grim picture of what lay ahead. According to Titor, the United States would soon descend into a civil war, beginning with growing civil unrest and culminating in a full domestic conflict around 2004, 2005. This would be followed by a global nuclear war in 2015, killing nearly 3 billion people. The survivors would rebuild society into smaller, community-based groups, less reliant on technology and more focused on sustainable living. He claimed that by 2036, humanity would be recovering from these catastrophes. Large cities were being rebuilt, limited space travel had resumed, and society was fundamentally different, more local, less globalized, with different values and priorities. Among his more specific predictions, he claimed the Olympics would be cancelled after 2004. They obviously weren't. He stated that mad cow disease would become a serious problem in America. There were indeed some cases, but not the epidemic he predicted. He warned of problems with the N1H1 virus. The swine flu did become a concern in 2009. He predicted that CERN would discover basic particles that would support the multiverse theory. CERN did indeed make significant discoveries, including the Higgs boson in 2012. He also made smaller, more ambiguous predictions. He mentioned Waco-like incidents would become common, a prediction vague enough that believers could point to various standoffs and domestic terrorism events as confirmation. Crucially, Titor provided himself an out for any failed predictions. He claimed that time travel doesn't allow movement within one's own timeline, but rather creates a new world line with a 2 to 3% divergence from the original. This meant that our reality might differ slightly from the one he remembered, conveniently explaining away any predictions that didn't come true. One of the most intriguing aspects of Titor's story was his stated mission: to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer. This wasn't just any machine. The IBM 5100 was a portable computer released in 1975, weighing around 50 pounds and costing between $8,975 and $19,975, equivalent to about $45,000 to $100,000 today. Titor claimed this machine was needed because it contained hidden functionality that wasn't publicly documented. Specifically, he said the IBM 5100 could read and emulate both IBM's proprietary code and APL, a programming language. Here's where things get interesting. Titor was right. The IBM 5100 did indeed have undocumented features that weren't widely known until much later. It contained both Palm, Puttle logic in microcode, and APL microcode, allowing it to emulate different computer systems. This feature wasn't publicized by IBM at the time. This specific technical knowledge about an obscure vintage computer impressed many tech-savvy forum members. How would an ordinary hoaxer know this relatively arcane information about a 25-year-old computer? This detail lent Titor's story a credibility that many other time travel claims lacked. Bob Dubke, an engineer who helped design the IBM 5100, later confirmed that the machine did indeed have this capability and that it wasn't widely known outside IBM. However, it's worth noting that this information wasn't entirely secret. It was documented in some technical materials and could have been discovered by a diligent researcher. John Titor's final message came on March 24, 2001. There are others here now in this time period, and they have no idea about their status. The most logical conclusion is that I leave here and they help me return. I can't say for sure what happens, but I am expecting the worst. With that cryptic farewell, Titor disappeared from the internet. His total active period had been just 4 months, but in that short time, he had created a legend that would persist for decades. After his departure, people began analyzing his posts more critically. Many of his major predictions failed to materialize. No civil war broke out in 2005, no nuclear war occurred in 2015, the Olympics weren't cancelled. Life continued, largely as normal. Yet some believers pointed to world events as evidence of the 2 to 3% divergence Titor had mentioned. The 9/11 attacks, which occurred after Titor's disappearance but weren't mentioned in his predictions. The increased political polarization in America, advances in quantum physics, all could be interpreted as partial confirmations of Titor's worldview, if one was motivated to see them that way. As Titor's fame grew, various individuals and groups attempted to uncover the truth behind the posts. The most comprehensive investigation came from an Italian investigative TV show called Voyager, led by filmmaker Gianluca Zignone. The investigation identified several key pieces of evidence suggesting the Titor posts were a hoax. 1. All posts came from a single location near Orlando, Florida, despite claims of traveling across the country. 2. The time machine photographs appeared to be modified images of military laser equipment. 3. Many of Titor's predictions could have been extrapolated from current events and concerns of the early 2000s. The investigators have proposed various theories about who might have created the John Titor persona. What we know for certain is that in 2003, a company called the John Titor Foundation was legally established in Florida. Larry Haber, an attorney from Celebration, Florida, was associated with this foundation as its legal representative. the Foundation published a book titled John Titor, A Time Traveler's Tale, which compiled the original posts and claimed copyright over the material. When questioned by journalists, Haber would neither confirm nor deny direct involvement in creating the original posts, stating only that he represented the interests of John Titor's family. The Foundation claimed to be preserving Titor's legacy at the request of his mother, though no evidence has been presented to substantiate this claim. Speculation has connected various individuals to the hoax, including computer scientists and relatives of those associated with the Foundation, but these connections remain unproven. The Foundation's existence does suggest someone recognized the commercial potential of the Titor phenomenon, though it doesn't definitively identify who created the original posts. Another interesting detail, the name John Titor and basic elements of his story had appeared in a 1998 fax sent to Art Bell's radio show, 2 years before the forum posts began. This suggests the character may have been in development for some time before his online debut. Beyond the circumstantial evidence, technical experts have scrutinized Titor's claims about time travel, physics, and technology. Physicists point out that while Titor referenced legitimate theoretical concepts, his description of how time travel works doesn't align with our current understanding of physics. His explanation of microsingularities contained significant flaws that would be obvious to experts in the field. For example, the energy required to create and maintain the black holes Titor described would be astronomical, far beyond what a car-mounted device could generate or contain. The radiation from such singularities would be instantly lethal to anyone nearby. Computer experts have also noted that while Titor was correct about some features of the IBM 5100, his explanation for why it would be needed in 2036 doesn't make technical sense. The legacy systems he described could be emulated through other means without requiring an original machine. Another telling detail, despite claiming to be from 2036, Titor never mentioned technologies that would emerge between 2001 and his time. He didn't reference smartphones, social media, cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, or any of the digital revolutions that were just around the corner. His future seemed to be extrapolated directly from the concerns and technologies of 2001, suggesting a limited rather than expanded perspective. Whether hoax or something more mysterious, John Titor left an indelible mark on internet culture. The story spawned countless forum threads, YouTube videos, books, and documentaries. It influenced creative works like the visual novel and anime series Steins Gate, which features a modified version of the Titor story as a central plot element. The John Titor phenomenon emerged at a unique moment in internet history, early enough that online communication still felt novel and potentially transformative, but late enough that a substantial community existed to witness and document it. It was one of the internet's first great mysteries, unfolding in real time on public forums preserved for future analysis. What makes the Titor story so enduring isn't just the time travel claim, it's the sense of plausibility it maintained. Unlike many internet hoaxes that quickly collapse under scrutiny, the Titor posts were crafted with enough technical detail, internal consistency, and ambiguity to withstand casual debunking. The story also tapped into very real anxieties of the early 2000s. Fear of technological breakdown, post-Y2K, political division, and global instability. Titor's future history offered both warnings and reassurance. Yes, terrible things would happen, but humanity would survive and perhaps build something better. Beyond the factual investigation, the John Titor story raises fascinating philosophical questions about time, truth, and belief in the digital age. If Titor was a hoax, as most evidence suggests, it was an unusually thoughtful and elaborate one. The creator, or indeed the creators, developed a complex character with a consistent worldview, technical knowledge, and philosophical perspective. They maintained the performance for months without breaking character, then walked away before it became stale or obviously false. This wasn't a hoax designed for quick financial gain or viral fame, which wasn't really a concept in 2000. It appears to have been created for the pure joy of storytelling and perhaps as a social experiment, to see how people would react to such claims, how they would evaluate evidence, what they would choose to believe. The Titor phenomenon also demonstrates how digital communities process and preserve information. Those original forum posts would have disappeared into the ether of deleted databases and server changes, if not for the community that found them meaningful enough to archive, analyze, and continually discuss. And there's a deeper question at the heart of the Titor story. Why are we so fascinated by time travelers? What is it about messages from our future that captures our imagination so completely? Perhaps it's because we all, in some sense, wish we could know what's coming. We want reassurance that there is a future, that human society continues, that our collective story doesn't end. Even Titor's dark future offered that basic comfort. People survived, adapted, continued. Or perhaps we're drawn to the idea that the future might reach back to warn us, to help us avoid mistakes, to give us a second chance. There's something deeply appealing about the notion that our fate isn't fixed, that knowledge from tomorrow might help us make better choices today. More than 20 years after those enigmatic forum posts, the case of John Titor remains officially unsolved. No one has definitively proven who created the character, though the evidence points strongly toward a sophisticated hoax originating in Florida. What's certain is that John Titor has earned a permanent place in the pantheon of internet mysteries. His story continues to be discussed, analyzed, and reimagined across digital spaces. New generations discover the legend and bring fresh perspectives to the investigation. Some still believe Titor was genuinely a time traveler, pointing to his technical knowledge and the events that could be interpreted as matching his predictions. Others see him as a creative work of science fiction, unfolding in real time on public forums, an early example of what we might now call an alternate reality game. Perhaps the most interesting perspective comes from those who suggest that whether or not Titor came from the future, his impact on our timeline is real. The ideas he introduced, the questions he raised, the communities that formed around his story, all of these changed our cultural landscape in small but measurable ways. In that sense, John Titor did alter the course of history, just not through a time machine. As we move closer to the future Titor claimed to have come from, his story serves as a fascinating time capsule, not of 2036, but of 2001. It captures the hopes, fears, and technological understanding of that moment, preserved through the digital amber of archived forum posts and continued discussion. In a world of rapidly evolving digital culture, where viral stories appear and disappear within days or even hours, the endurance of the John Titor legend is remarkable. Perhaps that's the real time travel at work, the ability of this story to transcend its moment, to continue fascinating us decades later, to travel forward through time, not via micro-singularities and Tipler cylinders, but through the collective memory and curiosity of internet communities. Wherever and whenever John Titor came from, his message continues to resonate. And in that sense, perhaps he achieved exactly what he intended. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, stay curious, stay safe.